and try to go to a place where there's like a bunch of women. I said, and maybe he can like watch a bunch of fat cows stuff their faces, right? So, her and I are having this banter email back and forth, and she laughed and she goes, oh, that sounds like a good idea. But, I don't know if he would really go for that because it's not me. And I said, well, this is the option. You could stay with him in this relationship and you become a whopping like 400 pounds because he wants to feed you over and over again and is getting off on the fact that you are feeding yourself and he's telling you like what to eat and how much to eat. I'm like, so it's kind of funny. The feeder is kind of like in control of the fetish, basically. So one would say, from my humble, honest opinion, it just sounds like the feeder, the guy, wants to be in control of the feedee and tell them how much food they can eat. So it's kind of an interesting fetish because one may say that the feeder is topping from the bottom, right? The woman that he is feeding, the feedee, I can't even, it's like so crazy. The feeder is the fella who wants the woman to eat. The feedee or the foodie is the woman that he's feeding. So if the dominant was the feedee and the sub was the feeder, it would be like role reversal, right? The sub is topping from the bottom and telling the mistress or master what they want to do. Like they're the ones in control with the food fetish, which is very interesting. I mean, I don't know. To me, there's so many different types of fetishes and so many different things behind them. But think about it. Most fetishes are derived from sexual fetishism, meaning you have a heightened sense of pleasure or you get off from it, whether it's mentally, physically, or out of mind, out of body experience, but you're still getting off on it, right? So that's like guys who go into the adult bookstores and there's porn on the televisions in there. And it doesn't matter what kind of porn it is. You're in a dirty, righteous atmosphere where people are in there for one main reason, to jerk off, to get sucked or fucked or become a fucker or a fucky, or a topper or a bottom, depending on how you look at it. So it's kind of like that. Like they go into the adult place and they know what they're going to be doing in there. So they go and do what is expected of them in the adult theater or glory hole. So it's kind of like the same situation where you have the feeder and the feedee. You definitely know what's going to happen when one decides to feed the other one. And how much food could one person really eat? I mean, I've seen videos of heavy-set women on, doing fetish type stuff for guys, like videos. Like there's this one heavy-set woman, I forget her name, beautiful lady. She sits in like a huge bed and, it's like the typical, like they used to say back in the day from my time period when I was younger, oh, I had this heavy-set babysitter and she used to wear a muumuu and lay her fat ass on the couch and eat bonbons all day long. Well, let me tell you, back in the day, if there was people with a food fetish, this woman would be like the creme de la creme, like the ultimate, like feedee. She'd be laying in a muumuu in a bed, stuffing her face with bonbons, potato chips, whatever she can get her grubby little fingers on, right? So, and this woman who used to babysit me when I was younger, I couldn't believe that this woman would eat such junk. Like we would go to McDonald's, which is not a great place to go anyway. But for breakfast, we all would get like eggs and pancakes. This woman would get like 3 orders of pancakes, a cheese Danish, 3 coffees, 4 sandwiches. I mean, she was eating like for a fucking French army, okay? And as I'm a kid, probably like 7, 8 years old, I would go home and, my parents would be like, oh, how was your day? What'd you guys do at so-and-so's house? And I was like, well, we sat there and watched her stuff her face all day long. And my father and mother would laugh. And then, as I got older and then, became interested in domination and learned always, fluctuating or evolving about different types of fetishes and paraphilias, and then coming across the feety fetish, I immediately thought of the woman who used to babysit me because, one, she was very large. She would eat to like basically gorge herself and stuff her face, and then she'd be sick all day long. Then she'd be like laying on her couch watching soap opera. So again, back to the typical scenario of, heavyset housewife laying on the couch all day long, stuffing her face, eating bonbons, and watching soap operas. Like, this is what comes to my mind when I think of a feety fetish, right? So think about it. How many of you listening to the show know exactly kind of like what Mistress is talking about when it comes to time periods with things people used to say about other people, feeding themselves like that. I mean, think about it. I grew up in the 70s, right? I was born in 75. I just turned 47 like 2 weeks ago. And it's kind of funny, as I'm getting older and I see, how the world works and been on this earth 47 years and I've passed around the sun, I can't even tell you how many times in either one life or another. But I really never ever thought that I would see a fetish for people wanting to stuff their faces. I mean, look, they already have, hamburger and hot dog eating contests, right? Like Nathan's every year has a hot dog eating contest. I don't know. To me, hot dogs are all right, okay? But certain hot dogs, you eat them on the grill, they give you agita, you boil them, whatever it is. Hot dogs, to me, I don't know. I couldn't eat more than 2 hot dogs in one sitting. But, when people are into the feety fetish and they find something they like, they seem to gorge on it more so than most people technically would with a feety fetish. I mean, I've seen heavyset women doing feety fetishes on like RedTube and Twitter and things of that nature. And some of the stuff is kind of interesting. These fellas will buy these women like literally like a Crave case or 2 Crave cases of White Castle. A whole fucking Chinese buffet spread that you could feed a fucking French army with. And, donuts with like cream pies and all sorts of, pastries, like really fatty pastries. And again, the whole feederism fetish is to feed someone. The guy feeds the woman, jerks off, or whatever the fuck he does to get off, and basically makes the woman plump and fat so he can get off on her big body also. So, I mean, this fetish has a different array of things that, it's kind of an interesting way of looking at stuff, right? So, think about it. Every time you take your wife or your girlfriend or your boyfriend out for dinner, I mean, it's cool to have an oral fixation, right? I mean, I have a friend who's an oral fixation, where they like looking at women putting on lipstick. I have another friend who likes looking at women who suck on lollipops. I mean, or pen caps or whatever it is. So there's all sorts of, different fetishes. So when I had told this woman about the feederism fetish, I said, well, look at it this way. You either stay with him and gain a ton of weight, or you tell him, look, I'm cool with your fetish, but it's really not for me. Like, I don't have a problem with you, playing around with someone else like that. I mean, look, if it was me and I was dating a guy who had a feety fetish, I would definitely say, look, I'm not into it, but you can do it, just don't make me fat. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so that was my advice for her. And I had said, look, out of all the fetishes in the world, this is probably the least exhausting out of all of them. I said, it's kind of funny. Feeding is a nesting bowl within feedism, a sexual subculture, like I said, that fetishizes overeating and weight gain. It's weird because food is a substance with people have a history of abuse. like, people that are, what do you call it, anorexics, like they will starve themselves rather than eating. But then you have people who are into like bulimia and stuff like that, where they binge and purge. So one would say that the feederism fetish could possibly lead to binging and purging, right? Heavy-set women eat tons of crap they're not supposed to eat, and they force themselves to throw up. Why? Because they like the taste of the food, but they don't want to gain the weight from it after. That really isn't kind of what I was talking about, but one could say that, somebody overeats like that, they could get used to becoming bulimic and, giving themselves, what do you call that? There's a disorder for that. There's, I'm kind of like a brain frazzle right now. So I'm like, there's a disorder. It's not anorexia. It's bulimia, I believe. But it's definitely a food disorder. And some say it's a mental disorder also. It's kind of interesting. All these fetishes and different things that people like I do, or another dominatrix does, or people in the fetish or kink lifestyle, one would say, a vanilla person would say that maybe I have a mental disorder because I like to, dominate men and women. I like to be in control. I love the power exchange, the TPE. When you can find somebody who is your like twin flame that you get along great with and you got a good rapport with them, you guys got great chemistry, dom-sub relationship, then that's a great thing. Then there's other stuff like, just kind of in it for the moment, right? But I don't know. Most people would generally say that people in BDSM have split personalities. Because think about it. Majority of us, all of us, are vanilla people living kinky lives, usually behind closed doors or in the privacy of your own home. Then you have people like me who go outside in their fetish gear, dressed in public for everyone to look at because I'm an exhibitionist. That's actually one of my personal fetishes. I like to be in public dressed kind of either sexy or out of the normal and have people ask me a ton of questions. To me, that's like a bit of a power exchange for me, or within myself. Then you have other fetishes like shoe, boots, nylons, a panty fetish. You have a fetish for cuckold, which is really more of a lifestyle rather than a fetish, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But, there's different fetishes like a leather fetish, a PVC and latex fetish. I've even heard of crazy things like a mohair sweater fetish, amagatophilia, the doll fetish, and then you have epractophilia, which is my favorite, one of the fart fetishes. And then you have olfactophilia, which is a smelling fetish, believe it or not. I could go on and on and on about different fetishes, but tonight's show was really about the feederism because, like I said, I do a Dear Mistress column, and I'd like to do it every show. So if you have any questions about fetishes, or you want to admit or tell or confess something to Mistress, do what this lady did on Instagram. Actually, she messaged BDSM Alive Radio at gmail.com, and she put Dear Mistress Q&A, and then she actually typed up a whole thing. I corresponded with her, and I told her that I would discuss the feederism fetish on the show. So I hope you're listening. I will just call her Tara. Tara, I hope I was able to answer your questions. I wouldn't worry about it too much. It's not like he's going to restaurants and like picking up heavy-set women and watching them, eat. It could come in handy for both of you. Maybe you could find like a submissive woman that has a feeder fetish, right? You and your boyfriend can go to dinner with her, and maybe you can get her to do house cleaning in exchange for him buying her dinner or something like that. Or who knows, maybe you and the girl can become good friends, and then you can get more insight to your boyfriend's fetish. Now, I had said to her that if he had a different type of fetish, like if he was into like foot and shoe worship,